Now then guys, welcome back to Range 23. My name's Bob and today we're going to be taking a look at a rather unusual shotgun, that is the FQ12 underlever. So yeah, here we have the Hatsan, Amsan, Kral, Barathrum, generic Turkish shotgun, Barathrum arms this one apparently. FQ12 underlever shotgun, affectionately known as the Bobcat, presumably named after the graceful cold weather cat and not the twin speed skid loader. I've had this one for about 9 months or so, put about 1,000 or so rounds through it in that time, so not loads by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly enough to kind of get a good feel for the shotgun, how it performs, how it runs. So first I'll just give you a quick rundown of the gun, give you some specs on it, and then we'll look at how it actually performs, some good points and bad points of it. So yeah, let's dive right in. So I picked my gun up from Practical Shooting Supplies over in sunny Doncaster. You can see on the website here we've got the price of the FQ12 as well as the price of spare barrels there. And on the next page we've just got some more info on the gun as well as like selecting different configurations and things. So although this is a lever action shotgun and you get to run it like John Wayne, pretty cool. Internally it's not actually that different to a pump in kind of the way most of the parts operate. You've still got your action bars, shell lifter mech, all that's the same magazine tube, all the usual suspects in there. The only difference is instead of obviously the fore end being what's used to actuate all that, pushing the bolt back and the action and then pulling it forward, you've got this lever which pulls it backwards and then pushes it forward with this action bar, with this rod bar thing. The other rather obvious thing about this shotgun is the barrel length. This one's currently running a 13.5, that is the shortest configuration you can get this gun in. There are other barrel length options, those being 18 and 24.
They're a bit long, aren't they? It's all us around. People want a bit more range these days. Wrong.
The 24-inch gun, you can get that as a section 2 with a restricted capacity, but the 18 and 13.5 are obviously going to be section 1, as is anything with an unrestricted tube. So all those barrels, regardless of length, are all going to be 3-inch magnum chambered, and they're all screw cut for multi-chokes as well. This gun came with 3, I think it came with the cylinder modified in full, I believe it was. But yeah, you can run aftermarket chokes and things in there, they are all screw cut for it. In this short configuration with this mag tube, this will hold up to 5 cartridges in the magazine, depending on their length. Obviously some of the longer ones, certainly the 3-inch or some of the longer buckshots and things, you'd be reducing that capacity to 4 at this in this configuration. Something else as well is this gun can't be carrier loaded just due to the way the action works, so you won't be able to sneak that extra shell on the loader before a stage if you're running it in a practical match. Also, in this configuration, the overall length of the gun is 35 inches. Like I said, this one's running a 13.5 barrel. It's actually slightly closer to 14 inches, but the class is a 13.5. And I've just completely forgotten the weight of the gun when I had it weighed. Let's go ahead and say 5 pounds.
Wrong.
I'll put it on screen. As for the rest of the gun, it's a pretty standard affair really. We've got a bead front sight, raised vented rib with a machined matte finish, which is nice. We've got wooden furniture on the gun with some nice texturing on it. We have an 11mm dovetail rail that runs the full length of the receiver for mounting any optics. We've got a small crossbolt safety and a rubber butt pad on the back. There's also a red anodised aluminium follower for the magazine as well, so it's easy to tell when that thing's empty, which is quite nice. So in terms of build quality, on a scale of 1 to 10, this thing is Turkish. That is to say, it's perfectly functional and it works, but there are certain areas where it's not the most refined gun. I'll do a separate kind of deep dive video on this where I put it on the bench and strip it down, look at all the different parts and finishes and stuff. So if that's something you're interested in, watch out for that. I'll post a link in the description once it's up. Right then, let's get into what it's like to actually shoot with this thing and how it performs. Nice. I'll be making a lot of comparisons to a 24-inch pump gun in this section because realistically that's kind of, I think, the closest alternative to this. You know, a section 1 unrestricted manual action 12 gauge shotgun. So I guess we'll start with the plus points, and one of the big ones straight off the bat is just the size of this thing, how short it is. Well, I say how short it is, it's still 35 inches long. That's roughly the length of a 16-inch AR-15, so it's not actually that short for a gun, but for a shotgun, it's certainly short, and for a shotgun in the UK, definitely, it's certainly short. And that just translates to really, really nice handling and manoeuvrability. Certainly if you're using this thing for practical, you know, going around obstacles, etc. You don't have all that extra weight. You've got nearly a foot of length taken off the front end there. And also that translates to much better handling. You don't have all that weight out front, all that inertia if you're transitioning to targets. So it's a very snappy gun to use to transition with. Really, really like that. I think that's one of its biggest plus points personally. Something else is obviously being a manual action is ammo compatibility. I've run about 1,000 or so rounds through this now, but I've tried to run as many different types as I can, all from everything from kind of 2.5 inch right up to 3 inch, bird shot, buckshot, slugs, high brass, low brass, different crimp ends. It just eats everything up with a bit of manual action. I've had no problems feeding, extracting or ejecting anything in this. So that's a big plus point. Personally as well, I think it looks absolutely brilliant. Love that short barrel. You know me, I'm all about that short barrel life, so that is a big plus point in my book. Some of you may disagree, but you're wrong.
Wrong.
And I guess another plus point is that it fits in smaller range bags and takes up less room and you're safe. On paper, that's pretty much it for good points with this thing, save one big one which we'll get to later on. So let's talk about some negatives. The first one is going to be the action itself, that lever action. It's not the smoothest action in the world, certainly not if you're used to coming from lever action rifles. Any lever action rifle I've ever used is a much smoother action than this. That's partly down to the fact this isn't the most refined gun in the world, but mainly down to the fact it's a 12 gauge action, throwing around these great big shells in there. I'll kind of try and show you what I mean. I'll stick a few in it. These are dummies, obviously. But it's a very stagey throw and return. You really feel the points of resistance in it. Do that a bit slower. You see, it's hard to come across on camera, but you can really feel it. Obviously, when you're going fast, you don't really notice it, but it is definitely there. So that's a negative in my opinion. And depending on what you're going to use this gun for, another drawback would be capacity. Obviously, 5 round maximum in the tube as in this configuration. Obviously, compare that to a 24-inch pump. You know, you can get 9 plus in one of them. And also, for loading, I mean, you can see the port cut on there. It's not too bad for a factory Turkish gun, but you've got this big action here, so it does mean that quad loading isn't exactly or dual loading isn't exactly the smoothest process. And yes, I have started to transition from pocket loading to quad loading reluctantly. All the cool kids do it. It is a little bit faster, but mainly just to stop everyone taking the piss out of me when I'm at the range. In fact, I did some quad loading with this. It was some of the first quad loading I did, so check that out. Yeah, baby. Oh. So there are a couple of other little negatives if we're comparing this to a 24-inch pump gun, and that is exclusively comparing this to a 24-inch pump gun, section 1. That would be the actual running of the action itself. The lever action is nowhere near as easy or as natural to run, I don't think, for most shooters. It's not an issue, it's not difficult, but compared to a pump, I mean, a pump action, you know, straight forward and back as well. If we imagine this is a pump action, get our shoulder in there, get our grip, our cheek weld, you're pumping along the bore axis of the gun, which is supported by a shoulder. You can push pull with your hands as well. So it's a much easier action to do. It's a much more natural action to do. The lever action again, we get our good posture on the gun. We're having to break our grip to throw the lever down and back up again, reacquire the grip, reacquire the trigger as well. If we're being really aggressive with the gun, running the action fast, you can sometimes have a tendency to kind of, you can see there we're throwing the gun, kind of the force is throwing the gun down in your shoulder and back up again. So it's not as natural feeling as a pump. Couple of other little things, not so much negatives, just kind of personal niggles, I would say. The crossbolt safety on this, it's extremely small. It's just a field gun safety basically. It's hard to actuate, extremely small. I'd like to see that a little bit bigger, but it's not a deal breaker by any means. But you know, if you're going to be using this for shooting drills or a competition or everything, it's just a little bit difficult to take on and off. The trigger, what's the best way to describe the trigger? Rudimentary, I would say. Not the best trick, it's not going to win any awards, but it's adequate, it's a shotgun, it works. So no dramas there. So being a little bit shorter and lighter than a 24-inch gun, this thing does seem to kick a tiny bit more. Not a lot at all. I mean, to be fair, if you're firing a few rounds, you probably won't even notice it. But over the course of a day, firing a few hundred rounds, I have felt it in my shoulder a little bit more. Range 23. And with that short barrel as well, this thing becomes like a Glaswegian at kicking out time. It's incredibly loud and obnoxious. I mean, seriously, you feed this the right ammo and it will spit out 2-foot fireballs out the end. Which, you know, could be considered a good thing in some people's book. But yeah, just something to be aware of. So on to any issues. I've only had one with this gun since having it, and that is that every now and again, probably every, maybe, depends, 20, 30, sometimes 40 rounds it'll go without this happening. But every now and again, you'll be firing, and then once you've fired a round and you go to unlock the action appears to be kind of stuck, closed. But you've just got to give it a real lot of welly to get it moving again. I don't think it's not a fault with the ammunition. It's happened with all different ammunitions I've used in the gun. Pretty sure it's just something sticking in the action there, maybe a bit of rough machining, something like that. But I've not opened the gun up to look at it yet because I wanted to keep this gun absolutely stock for this review to kind of get my head around it, see what was good and bad in it. I know Vincishooter's done a video on his where he's made a few little internal modifications, simple modifications to it, which he says have improved the running of the gun a lot. So that's something we'll be taking a look at in the deep dive video. It's probably something I'll be doing myself to the gun. But yeah, apart from that one little issue, which, like I say, all you do when you're shooting it, it just kind of throws you off a little bit. You'll be used to shooting, and all of a sudden it's like, oh Jesus, you've got to really throw some welly into it, and it just kind of throws you off your rhythm a little bit. But other than that, I've had absolutely no issues with this gun whatsoever. There is one more little thing. It's not so much an issue, just a kind of a training issue, I guess. Is you can outrun this action if you're going faster, your timing's not quite on. You can get the action almost all the way closed. Look, you can see here the bolt is still open, and we can drop the trigger. Obviously the gun won't fire because it's not in battery, but you close the action and then you've got a dead trigger because you've just hammer followed home. It's just a training issue really, but not an issue with the actual gun, an issue with me. So that just about sums up all the good and bad points with this gun, save that one really big good point I was talking about earlier, which is that, kind of simply put, this is hands down the most fun shotgun I have ever used. I mean, honestly, it's mad. It's just that ridiculous barrel, the huge muzzle flash, the awkwardness of kind of loading it in the action. It's so handicapped compared to other guns. It's just so much fun to use. You know, it's such an underdog. If even when you mess things up, if you're shooting like a little drill or a stage or whatever, and you mess things up, you fumble the reload, whatever, it never fails to leave you smiling. I love it. I think there's some shooters that seem to be kind of so focused on performance and things and accuracy, whatever it is. It almost feels like they're forgetting what shooting's all about, and for me that's having fun, and this gun is a perfect reminder of that. Absolutely love it. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Be all about that YouTube life. Be your best selves. Any questions you've got, just ask me them down below in the comments. I'll get back to you as quick as I can, and I'll see you in the next video. Not sure when that'll be because I don't have the best track record of releasing them regularly, but until that time, make sure you're having fun. Cheers, guys.